Hi, this is your teacher, Paul, on Learn American English Online on YouTube. This is May 22nd, 2026. It's Friday. I have today off, and so I thought I'd spend some time here live. And uh, Today I'll talk a little bit about how you can recognize that your English is getting better. Sometimes students don't realize that their English is actually improving. And today I have a sort of a list of ways that you might determine if your English is getting better. I haven't been on here in a few months, and this is good, I think, to come back and practice a little bit. Also, I'll talk about the upcoming videos that I'm working on right now, and um, also take ideas from you for upcoming videos if you have any ideas. So, how do you know if your English is getting better? One thing I think happens for many of my students is they develop their own unique style of expressing themselves in English. And I think once you realize that you have that ability, that you have this unique method, or there's a set of vocabulary words that you're used to using, excuse me, vocabulary words, or when you put sentences together, you recognize that this is the way that you typically do it. I think that's one indicator that you're getting better with your English. People are starting to join here from Venezuela, Istanbul, Peru. Hello, everybody. Um, so you have your own unique method of expressing yourself with vocabulary, particular vocabulary. And I think also once you start to recognize that you're using particular phrasal or verbs or nouns, you have an assortment of words that you can draw from and feel comfortable using, then you that is an indicator that you're getting better with your English. When you use phrasal verbs like, put in, pull in, sleep in, eat in, uh, videos I've made recently on phrasal verbs like take away, um, pull off, get in, get on, those kinds of those kinds of phrasal verbs. Once you recognize them, when you hear them, you understand them, and you're able to use them yourself. Might not be a very large number of those types of verbs, but you feel confident enough to try to use them and experiment with them. And I think that's one way to tell that your English is getting better. Another thing that I think is important is when you look at a sentence or you hear a sentence and you recognize all of the words, especially if the sentence contains a lot of basic vocabulary, but you know all of them, and the sentence order, or how words are put together in a question, you can recognize all of those and understand how they function. That's another really important way to know that your English is getting better. Another thing that happens, and this happens for anyone who's first language is English, and I assume this happens with other languages, but you're able to anticipate words. That is, you know what words will be spoken before they're actually spoken. You know which words go together. So before somebody finishes a sentence, you kind of have an idea how that sentence is going to end. So that's another marker that your English is getting better. Another thing is uh, when you don't know what a word means, what do you do when you don't know what the word means? Do you look the word up or do you let it go? I often tell my students to just let it go and you'll figure out the meaning of the word perhaps later. But once you feel comfortable just letting words go without completely understanding them, I think that's another important milestone. Remember that English is a big language and it's not possible in a short amount of time to know what all the words are. You can't know what all the meanings of the words are. And so you have to kind of learn how to let them go and still derive meaning from all the other words. You develop the skill of understanding words in context, and so you don't fully understand the meaning of the word, or it's possible you don't know the meaning of the word at all, but you're able to just let it go and not feel guilty about it. Students rolling in here from India, Sudan, Egypt. I'm not sure what the chucking method is, um, but I do think it's important to learn grammar. You don't need to spend all your time learning grammar. It could come somewhat naturally. That, by the way, is something I've been working on a little bit lately on some of the videos on YouTube. If you've noticed, that's learning English naturally. Um, I'm using my video camera and taping outdoor scenes and speaking over them, or I'm just speaking over a still shot about a topic. So I'm still kind of experimenting with that. I think you can learn from that kind of a method, mostly listening skills, which are extremely important. I think another thing that helps um, you realize that you're getting excuse me that you're getting better at English is when you look forward to learning English, wherever that might be, whether it's in school or you're using a book or you go onto YouTube occasionally. You actually look forward to it. It's not drudgery, which is not good if you don't like doing it and it feels like a painful experience, or if it feels like a burden, that's not a good sign. I think if you start looking forward to it, that's a very positive sign that your English is getting better. I think anything that you really want to do will help you become better at it. You have to have sort of a positive attitude and feel motivated. And if you are, then the experience of learning will be better. Another thing is, when you speak and you make small mistakes, or when you write and you make small mistakes, you're able to, tolerate those small errors and then just keep going instead of stopping completely, instead of feeling bad about yourself because you made a mistake. It's important to realize that everybody makes mistakes, including your teacher. I do it all the time. And, but that doesn't prevent me from doing the things that I enjoy doing or I enjoy learning about. Study German and I also play the guitar. And in both of those areas, I make lots of mistakes, but I don't stop. So you got to, you know, allow those mistakes to happen, learn from your mistakes, but don't get too upset with yourself if you make those small mistakes. Just recognize that that's part of what it means that what it means when you're learning. You're making these small mistakes. If there's anything that you want to say about your own understanding of or how you perceive your own improvement, if there's something that happens to you that helps you realize that you're getting better in English, you can just go ahead and put that in the chat. Could be something small, something that you realize you've done, or something you realize you now understand. Could be a particular word, sets of words, could be an area of grammar. Maybe it's the verbs that you use. If you have a better understanding of how you're using your verbs, that's another way to know that you're improving. Verbs, of course, are essential in communicating in English, and knowing when to use them, how to use them, which verbs to use is essential. Of course, you have a lot of choices when it comes to verbs. So, so if you spend a lot of time on that and you recognize your improvement in that area, that's a good thing. Is there anyone here who has had that experience? Have you experienced an improvement in your use of verbs or verb tenses? Perhaps you can write about your experience there in the chat. Another way to know that you have improved is when you hear from other people. What are the comments that other people make when they are talking with you or when they hear you speak English? Do they give you complimentary um, or make complimentary statements or comments, say kind things about how your English has improved? If you ever hear that, that's good. Those compliments could come from a teacher or from classmates or no, just about anyone. Could be a neighbor with whom you're speaking English. They notice that your English is getting better. I always tell my students when their English is getting better or when they've done something um, that shows improvement, that does help your confidence. And you need the confidence to for there to be any improvement. I'm going to be on here for about, oh, maybe 25, perhaps 30 minutes. We'll see. Um, so if there's anything that you want to ask me about, go ahead, do that now. I could talk about some upcoming videos that I'm planning. I want to make one for. put in. That's a phrasal verb. I did something with my one of my English classes this week, and I think a lot of students really appreciated learning about how to use put in. There are a lot of different meanings for that. So I think I'll make a video on that topic. And then this morning, I was thinking about the word while. When you use that as a conjunction, it's a subordinating conjunction. And I think I'll make a video on that. I don't think I have one on while in my list of videos on Learn American English Online or on my other YouTube channel, English for the Planet, which is also a website, englishfortheplanet.com. I'll just put that here. It's very slowly expanding. Takes a long time to make websites by hand. I don't use AI. Videos also, sometimes it takes a while to put a video together. I'm not using AI for that. I notice a lot of new videos coming online that are exclusively AI, which is okay if they help you. But sometimes I wonder if the people who are making those videos know English because you don't see a person. It's just mostly animation and, you know, AI dialogue. So, um, Lily mentions that, or agrees with me that um, people feel more confident when others notice improvement. So it's a good thing to recognize. This is, um, oh, thank you. Thanks for the comment, and you're welcome. Um, this is Memorial Day weekend in the United States, so it's a longer weekend, 3 days, maybe 4 days for some people, and this is the beginning of summer. Perhaps I can ask you what your plans are for the summer if you ever take time off during the summer. I'll be working this summer, except for perhaps 3 weeks. It looks like my teaching schedule will be full, but I think I'll have about 3 weeks in August this year. I don't have a typical teaching assignment. I work exclusively with adults in the area of English as a second language, but I also am uh, a high school teacher for adults. So students who work with me get their high school diploma um, from an American high school, and they do the kind of work that is typically done at the high school level in the United States. So I'll be doing that this summer. Right now, in one of the classes, in my literature class, students are reading The Great Gatsby. That's a novel by F. Scott Fitzgerald. Perhaps you're familiar with that novel. In addition to teaching, I think I'll spend some time gardening. That's something I enjoy. Working in the backyard. I grow tomatoes, basil, strawberries, This year, I'm gonna try onions and gladiolas, but the thing I really want to grow, as always, um, is, or are the tomatoes. There's nothing like getting a good fresh tomato. Uh, Greetings from Iran. Hello, Connor. I'm assuming that's your first name. Sorry about what's happening in Iran. I haven't been here live since the war began. I don't think it was a good idea. I don't mind saying that. Not just because of the high gas prices, but, because of the loss of life. It was really awful, especially and that girls' school was destroyed and all those girls who died. I think a lot of people feel bad about that. It doesn't seem like it was necessary. There was a good agreement in place under, President Obama, and Trump did away with that agreement, unfortunately. And now the situation has really just been made worse. I know I know a lot of people in Iran were happy to see the previous Ayatollah, removed, but now his son is in his place. That might not be a better, option or, replacement for the, father. So, yeah, I guess you have to be inventive when it comes to getting the internet. Um, yeah, I feel awful about what's happening there. I've worked with a lot of Iranians over the years. It's it's hard to it's hard to live there. The people I work with, of course, are here, and, they don't have any plan on going back, but they still have family and friends back there, and they pay attention to the news. The woman who cuts my hair is from Iran. She was very happy when, war started and, you know, some of those leaders were taken out, but I haven't spoken with her since. Um, I think perhaps people have a lot of mixed emotions about that. I didn't really wanna talk a lot about, war or politics during this, um, podcast. Um, I just wanna come back here and practice a little bit. It is a different format from what I normally do when I'm at the whiteboard or when I've made those recent videos, and it's kind of a voiceover where there's a script which I create, and, I think I like doing that. It's a listening exercise, and I have a lot of control because it's all written ahead of time. I ad lib a little bit as I'm speaking. When you ad lib, that's, I'll put the words in the chat, ad lib. When you ad lib, you speak off the top of your head. You, you speak extemporaneously. I'll type that word out. It's a long one. And, you have something prepared. It serves as a guide, but you add to, the script with ideas that come to you as you're speaking. So I kind of like doing that, experimenting with that. Over the years, I've tried a lot of different things, a lot of different experiments to see what will work, what won't work. Okay, I'm gonna stay on for another, I think, another 5 minutes. So, um, if there's anything you wanted to ask me about regarding English, perhaps this is the time. There are 40 people here so far. Not as many as I usually have. I think because I haven't been doing this very much or not at all lately. I think the last time I came on live was after Renee Good was killed in Minneapolis. I don't think I came on after Alex Preddy was killed. Both of those came at the hands of federal agents. The part of the ICE actions, immigrations and custom enforcement action that occurred here in the Twin Cities, in Minneapolis and St. Paul. I attended the protests and followed the news at the time. Since then, not a lot has happened. I mean, things have quieted down, which is good, but ICE agents are still in the area. At our school, we made special provisions for our students to go online instead of go to the building where I teach because they thought it would be a safer option instead of showing up in person. They were um, taking classes online, and we've since stopped that because I don't think, or we don't think, it's as necessary to offer that option. Things have cooled down a little bit. I assume things will move to other states, but Minnesota is still getting a lot of attention from the federal government. I think Minnesota is being made an example of so that other states fall in line, perhaps. This is a very generous, welcoming state. I don't think Trump appreciates that very much. A lot of people move here once they come to the United States. If they move to another state, they often end up in Minnesota because of the opportunities here, and and because there are a lot of programs that help people become better adjusted to their new lives here in the United States. So I assume that's the reason why this area gets so much attention. How do you articulate like a native speaker? Um, one thing you can do is, I always recommend that my students read out loud. If you can find a book, it could be anything, a book, a newspaper, a magazine, something that's at your level, and just read it out loud. Even if it's a children's book, reading out loud on a regular basis will help you with your articulation. And if you record your voice, if you record yourself when you're reading and then compare that to a recording that you make later, that's a good way of showing how you've improved. The topic of this podcast is improvement. How do you recognize or how do you realize whether or not you have improved? And I think by making a recording of yourself speaking English or reading in English is one good way to do that. Make the recording and then save it. Make sure you know where it is and then go back to it later, months from now, 6 months from now, or from when you make the recording, a year, 2 years. This is something I do with my guitar playing. I record myself and then I just kind of forget about it. I actually put it into a file on my computer, and it has a date on it, and then I can listen to it later and see if it's getting better, and usually it is. When I make those recordings, I also will say a few words about the objectives I have in mind when I make the recording. What is it that I'm focusing on when it comes to playing the guitar? If it's playing in a particular key or a chord or trying a solo or it's a particular song, um, I'll say something about it and then just play. Likewise, if you do that with English, just maybe say a few things about what it is that you're working on and then do it. Make the recording and then listen to it later. How do you improve your listening skills? Um, and especially live conversation. Well, if you listen to the radio, I think that's a good place to start, or news broadcasts where there are two people talking to each other. If you're looking for natural conversation, uh, movies I think are helpful. Television shows. Um, I think you just try to read and listen whenever it's possible, wherever you are. Um, Try to speak to other people when that's possible. I know that this is not always possible to do, but if you could perhaps talk to yourself, if there's a something that you're working on, something you're trying to learn, and you vocalize that, just say it out loud, and you do that again and again. I think that can help. If there's an activity that you're engaged in at school, at work, at the grocery store, if you kind of say it out loud, then that can help. Um, Another thing I think is helpful is if you if you're writing on a regular basis, if you keep a notebook and you write about your activities, so you have a notebook and you date it. I've made videos about this. You have a notebook that's exclusively for learning English. And each time you write in the notebook, you write the date, and then what comes after, the date is really determined by what you're working on. Today is May 22nd, 2026. You would write that in your notebook, and then whatever comes to mind or whatever you're working on, write about that. Write about your daily activity. I think that's really helpful. Um, if you can get a job where English is spoken, and then you can listen to people at work, or if there's an organization that you can join, or an organization where you can volunteer, um, but it would be a place where English is the primary language. Um, Anything that gets you into contact with people who speak English is going to be helpful. It could be a sport, um, a job, a school, a group that you form. If there are other people like you interested in learning English, if you can join a group of people dedicated to, you know, improving their English, that's very helpful. Um, yeah, I think mimicry helps. Um, do you think that to mimic can help? imitating the way another person speaks can be helpful. It could be a video that you see on YouTube. It could be one of my videos, I suppose, or there are a lot of good videos out there, a lot of good teachers out there whose work you could imitate. Just you find a section on that video that you like, and then just rewind the video and imitate the person speaking in that one section. Just do that again and again. I think that might be helpful. I'm not sure if it makes any difference, as far as gender goes, if it's a male voice or female voice. I do kind of think that if you're a man, you probably want to imitate the a man's voice, and likewise, if you're a woman, you probably want to imitate a woman's voice. That might not make that much of a difference. I'm not sure, to be honest. I think you could probably learn English from of course, you can learn English from a person of the opposite gender. Um, your voice is what it is, and you want to keep that in mind too. It's gonna be difficult to come up with the same sound because of the way your vocal cords have formed, the way your face has formed, the tongue, the teeth, all that works together in forming sound. And you know, it's hard to change that, certainly not overnight. You're likely to always have some kind of an accent, which is fine. I think that's a good thing. It's a very American thing to have an accent. When people speak English as a second language here, often hear it spoken with an accent. And that, to me, sounds like an American sort of thing because so many people have come here from other countries. I'm just going to scroll through here to see um, who's here. Somebody from Morocco, Burma, Myanmar, Angola, Venezuela. It's always interesting to see who shows up when I do this, especially because this is instantaneous and this is live. And so wherever you are, this is happening at the moment. That's interesting. That's also why I have to practice this. And I know I've mentioned in the past, I don't always feel comfortable doing this because of all the mistakes I'm likely to make. It's better if I can just put this onto video and then edit out the parts that don't help. You know, the moments when I'm not saying anything that can be eliminated, or if I stumble over my words, I can take that out. Some students say they like to hear that because it sounds natural. So I understand that. I'm going to end here pretty soon. I've been on for about 40 minutes. I have a few things to do yet this afternoon. I have to go shopping. This is the time of day when I usually do it before it gets, you know, too busy, um, which is around 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock. The stores seem to pick up in intensity. Um, it's about 3 o'clock, but it is on a Friday. I don't know. Maybe I'll wait until tomorrow. Yes, motivation is important. You have to feel motivated. If you don't feel motivated to improve your English, um, it's hard. Although you do have to work on it regardless. If you really want to accomplish your goals and you don't have that motivation, you still have to work through it. You still have to try. We're not always motivated every single day we do something. So I think, just make it a routine when you want to practice your English. Just do it on a regular basis. My feeling is that the morning is the best time when you're most alert after you've after you get up in the morning, have some coffee or tea, and then work on your English. However you do that, if you use a computer or you read a book or write, the morning is a good time. Nicholas from the DRC, Democratic Republic of Congo. I hope everything is going well there. Okay, so I think I'm gonna stop and I'll make this available on YouTube for a couple days. I don't know how long. Um, Sometimes I take these off or I make it available just to members. I kind of rely on members now to help make the webcast feasible financially. I do have to purchase stuff, equipment, cameras, batteries, markers, other things that you wouldn't realize I have to spend money on. So that membership does help. But I'll continue making the videos regardless. It is fun. I enjoy doing it. It's interesting. Um, I the thing I find interesting about it is it's just a challenge to find one thing about English and try to teach that online. I look at the videos sometimes after I make them, um, just to see what I'm doing right, doing wrong, and then I'll just move on to something else. But it's always an interesting experience. Um, Guilt tripping. Um, eh, what does it mean? Uh, so if a person is in a guilt trip, the person is experiencing guilt. Somebody said something that made him or her feel guilty, um, or I suppose it could be used in such a way that you're forcing guilt on another person. I don't use it that much. I hear it, of course. Somebody's on a guilt trip. Somebody feels guilty for having done something. Okay, I'm going to stop here and return to what I was doing before I got on here today. Have a good day, everybody. Thanks for showing up. I'll be back. I'll try to be back sooner than later, perhaps in a week or two. Okay, bye-bye. Have a good day.